Welcome to the CodePlay Culture podcast, where we discuss tech, gaming, health, and the world around us.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting, amazing episode of the CodePlay Culture podcast, where we go over all sorts of fun things in the coding, playing, entertainment space, work from home, mental health, physical health, pharmacology, optimizing sleep, nutrition, health, diet, exercise, all of that. Today is our first episode in that realm of the culture around coding, playing, and how to optimize mental health. And I'd like to introduce our guest today, Paulina, who is a registered social worker who is practicing as a mental health counselor and spent the last 10 years of her career supporting people with intellectual disabilities to overcome sociological barriers and foster independence. And welcome, Paulina. Thank you so much for joining Rui and I.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I think it's such an important topic we're covering today.
Yeah, it's like I could only imagine you must have gotten so much busier like post-COVID.
Yeah, I actually did my master's during the pandemic. And then I did my practicum at a private practice, private counseling practice. And it's just the influx of support needed for people during this time in general, just not only obviously due to working from home, but the pandemic and everything else that's been going on the last 3 years. Yeah, it's definitely like it's more talked about now, but it still is not understood to the level of that this has all affected people.
So you're suggesting there's a long-term implication to everything that transpired over the last couple of years that hasn't been brought to light? Is that
Absolutely.
something?
Like I would say like you hear about it a little bit more on the news now, right? The people are talking about the effects of mental health. The Ford government is putting in place more mental health support with like OHIP coverage for people. There's some talks about this increased suicide rates, but it's just not top of the line news, right? Like it's
Right.
not. It's it's like it's kind of like a fad. It fades in and out. It's not until it starts hitting home for people. Very recently, I've had a lot of really, really just sad young lives being lost around me, hearing of people who have been losing loved ones, people significantly struggling with their mental health to the point of like needing hospitalization. It's just been starting to hit home for a lot of people. And I think that's when it's opening eyes and people are like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm. It's like that whole thing where, when the artist dies, they're like, oh my gosh, have you heard of this amazing artist? They had a lot of great
Mm.
stuff. It's like, hey, why didn't you appreciate me when I was alive? You have to wait till I'm dead. It's almost like by the time people are in that situation, it's too late. Like it's not there's no like happy pill. You have to work at it every day. And if you get to the point where you need some kind of it's probably too late.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that's just it, right? People are not recognizing receiving mental health support as preventative. It's all reactive. And then when you're already at that point, you might be past the point of what a counselor or a therapist can do and support you with. Then there's, you're bringing in potential medication, other diagnoses, things that have gone way too far for way too long, unrecognized, unworked on. It's not being paid attention to. So yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
And it's really stacked against us too, because since we're born, like once we get into preschool, we're hooked up to the capitalist milk machine until we're 65. And then most office workers, due to sitting and lack of exercise at 65, including my own dad, passed away within the first year of retirement. My friend, it happened to him as well. So it is stacked against us, right? Like we can't really choose what to do. Like, do you want to go somewhere today? You can't. You got to go to school, or you got to work. You got to do X, Y, Z. And so knowing that is probably even harder for us.
Yeah. And it's this like hustle and bustle culture too. I've been talking about this quite a bit with people, but it's a lot of kind of comparing between Europe and North America and what does these lifestyles look like. And, I'll have family, my whole family's in Poland, and I'll have people coming here and just seeing how we live, the pace, the hustle and bustle of everything that we do, the distances that we do and go and travel to do things and see people because we're such a large, widespread country, like everything takes so long. And these people are from like smaller towns, and their grocery store they walk to, work they walk to, right? It's not, it's very different. So yes, comparing the lifestyles, like when you look at North America and what we're kind of accustomed to, and we're just almost like here to, we live to work, not work to live, and that is a huge, huge, huge just disservice to all of us.
Uh,
Yeah.
Besides siesta, what else? It's just culturally different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think culturally, the distance I think is a big piece. I mean,
Hmm.
there are people who live in the bigger cities, right? And then they do drive to work, they do the commute, they do have the traffic. But the kind of smaller towns, like my dad literally walks to work. He walks
Mm.
to work. He works like 5 minutes away. His son works. He's a teacher, and his son works goes to a school, so he sees his son all the time. It's a very different kind of dynamic in that way, and I do understand that's a kind of a rare example, and not everyone will have that. But it's the piece around the fact, they're all home by 3 p.m. They walk home together. They have the whole day. For us, we're lucky if we get to pick up our kids from daycare by 6, and then they're in bed by 8. You
Right.
know,
Mm.
and
But
then
Yeah,
this
that
work
to
from home
school.
thing, yeah, this work from home thing kind of gave us that opportunity to do all that, to have more control over our schedule and spend more time with our families, right? Kind of like the same thing,
Yeah.
same situation in Poland, right? Except here we have that opportunity. Where there it's kind of part of society, right?
Hmm.
So I feel
Yeah.
like we are blessed. We are blessed with this.
I don't know. I'm a bit of a devil's advocate on this one. I'm a yes and a
Mm.
no when it comes to this work from home um, model. I do think that it's provided us with a lot of flexibility. And I do agree with you, like having, I mean, the last 3 years are so hard to compare to, because I think we're just kind of in the stages of like, okay, life is officially back to normal. Our kids are officially back to school. We're not doing lockdowns. We're not all kind of in this nuclear unit together. So now we have to manage still childcare, and then still do our 9 to 5s. But yes, we get to do it from home.
Right.
So that piece is not this, I wouldn't say still, that's kind of changed. It was the pandemic piece that let us have more time with our kids at home, that let us have everyone
Mhm.
home. Employers were a lot more understanding to having the kids at home while you were working and hearing them in the background, and right.
Right.
There is a lot more flexibility to that, whereas
Yeah.
we're slowly pulling away from that, and I'm hearing that from a lot of clients. I'm seeing it for myself. I don't know, what's your experience like that with that?
Like the return to work
Mhm.
epidemic.
Yeah.
Yes, it's there's a lot of people, especially boomer companies, that are
Mhm.
like, hey, if
Mhm.
I can't see you, I can't put a
Right.
barcode on you and prove that you're working. I
Punch
was
Mhm.
like,
clock.
and the punch clock level of dinosaur type of organizations, which are uh, anti, I don't know, are not going with the flow. Um,
Yeah.
there's one guy on TikTok I follow. He's so funny. It's like when he does funny videos on culture, work from home, all this stuff. And he's saying there's a lot of people that once they get that email, return to work, people just minimize the email and go to Indeed, right? Because if your current company is not offering what you want, and this is not like an analogy, this is not a preachy analogy for work from home. It's for anything. You need to be actively searching and looking. Like, do not get in a place of complacency to just accept things, just
Right.
because
Yeah.
you are handcuffed. And for a lot of people, oh, this is my first job, I don't want to mess it up. Like, no, like just um, one thing that I would recommend, just outside of the, and you have to, forgive me. And Rui knows that I go deep into unnecessary tangents, and he's got to pull me out of rabbit holes like a magician. But I do something called ABI, which is always be interviewing. So I'm always applying for stuff just to practice those kind of like Toastmaster level of public speaking, video calls, interviews for jobs. Not necessarily because I'm interested in, work. Some do turn into clients, customers, or positions, but it's just to get out there to know that there's other, things. But
Mhm.
yeah, like there is this whole shift of like, get back to work so I can hook you back up to the corporate, milking machine of the
Right.
the industry, right?
And
Which makes no sense.
do you both exclusively work from home now?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so before the pandemic, did you as well, or were you in the office?
I was in the office at least
Uh,
4 days a week, and
uh,
Logan, you too,
No,
probably, right?
yeah, I was working from home for like 4 years, kind of well, when Rui and I were working together. After that, it's like it was all work from home, and then it went to, actually no, it went to like 3 days a week, then it went to two, then it worked from home, and this is probably like 2 years of work from home pre COVID.
mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. And now, so you both, now there's no talk of kind of going back?
No,
No.
which is
No,
Okay.
incredible. Yeah.
this is how
Yeah.
we're gonna retire.
Yeah. And
This is
and
it.
I agree with you. So it's so good for a lot of people. There's so much flexibility. Your days are longer, right? Like you're saving on a commute. Financially, you're making the same or not or more at this point,
Mhm.
and you're not spending money on the clothes, the gas, the parking, the
Hmm.
maintenance of your car. Like financially, there's so many pieces too that you're gaining. But I do think about the people who may not have as full of a life outside of work as maybe some of us are
For
lucky to
sure.
have.
Yeah.
And I think that loneliness piece is has turned into an epidemic
Hmm.
in our society, and
Mm.
um, taking away that kind of like human interaction from a lot of people's day to day. And I mean, let's be real, we spend 8 hours if not more at work every day, so doesn't leave that much afterwards. So if you're spending that much time at home and you're sitting in front of a computer, you don't have a job where you have a lot of virtual meetings, you're not talking to anyone, you're kind of just coding or whatever it may be that you're doing that
Mhm.
involves you to just sit in front of a screen for 8 hours. You turn it off and you go home, and there's no one there. Like, you don't have a nuclear family that you're going home to, you don't have that social outlet necessarily. And it is a huge portion of our population.
Hmm.
So, there's this group of people that we also kind of sometimes neglect to think about how that's affecting them and their personal lives, just not having those social outlets. Of course, devil's advocate, people can say, well, it's on you to kind of like build up your social life.
Mhm.
But I think we can also agree to say that as adults, it's hard as heck to make friends right now,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do I have to download an app to make friends? Like,
right?
is that the
Yeah.
world we live in? Because, like, you just, I don't know. Like, it's just like, can you imagine kids that are like, I don't know, just like, if you're not going to that place, and that work from home is getting younger, right? Because
Yeah,
Hmm.
now that like AI is disrupting the educational system and they can't
yeah,
keep up with plagiarism, they're again going to shift lower and lower, where it's going to be hybrid at high school. And then, can you imagine like trying to homeschool and it was in the epidemic. We got a call from the teacher. It's like, oh, your son isn't participating in the Teams meetings, Microsoft Teams. And we're like, listen, lady, with all due respect, my son doesn't know how to read yet. I mean, like, he's never used a computer. We're like, don't give him that stuff, because we want him to have a fun, fulfilling childhood filled with
yeah.
friends and
Hmm.
non-screen. Don't worry, you'll get the screen by the time you want it or don't, but it's just hilarious.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, so like that's exactly it, right? Like, it's so difficult now. It's hard for us to make friends as adults. Like yesterday, I had a birthday party for my daughter, and 50% of the guests were my colleagues that I met, 5 years ago, who have kids and brought their kids. And I would not have had these connections had I been virtual this whole time.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's this piece that, we already are limited with our social networks. And as you grow older, your social network gets smaller and smaller. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're taking away this opportunity for people to make connections and friendships at work, which is really the primarily way adults do have friendships. And yeah, so that's a big piece. So again, that's kind of contributing to that like loneliness aspect, and um creating a society of kind of like unhappy people.
Yeah.
So
So
there
for
is
that,
that piece.
Yeah.
so for sorry for that sorry that for that culture that is like all work from home, like you're saying, a coder or someone that's doing computer work and that's lonely, doesn't have a dog, doesn't have family, friends, or that nuclear family. um, some of the companies, a lot of them, I would say a majority, in my limited biased opinion, is they
Yeah,
don't have cameras on for the calls, right? And just that
yeah,
little thing, having an always on camera policy, like within reason. Sorry, my, I don't know, I have like a contagious flesh-eating rash, like sure, turn it off, like that's a little TMI, but
Yeah.
the rest of the you don't have that level of connection without it. But I've been on like calls with, and then it's not even profile photos, because like, I love when people set those, but it's basically the generic, LD, RP, like all of the initials in the
Mm-hmm.
circles. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you make a relationship with a circle that talks?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
might as well just get a Google Home, or, it's
But
pretty
that's the
robotic.
thing, like to Paulina's point. I'm sorry. You don't have the opportunity to get close to somebody, right? Because you're at home. Everybody's a stranger, right? Everybody's a screen. So by not going to the workplace, you don't have that connection, that emotional connection with that person. So I mean,
Mhm.
why would I turn on my screen to talk to this
Mm-hmm.
stranger? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't
Mhm.
want to personally, unless I know the person,
And I
right?
don't know that even that's enough. Like, I really
Hmm.
don't know that this screen aspect, of just being able to have this interaction over
For
video
sure.
is enough for us to be like, this is a meaningful relationship. Like, this is, I really click with
Mhm.
this person. I really vibe with them. You're
Right.
not going out for lunch with colleagues at noon. You're not going to
No.
go, you're not going to go out and do the social aspect of work. You're not going to Zoom someone to just gossip or talk about like workplace office politics. Like, you're not going to do that. So
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
this socializing piece that's really missing, and then all your interactions are work, 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 business
Yeah.
talk, right? You're not so for that aspect, I do really appreciate the hybrid model. I do
Mm.
think that people are benefiting a lot from that hybrid model where it's kind of like, 3 days at home, 2 days in the office, or just giving people the option to go in if they want to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I like, again, like I do work in an office where we are now in a hybrid model phase, and I don't know. There is something too, just going in that like 1, 2 days a week, and you kind of get
Mhm.
your social interactions out. Like the way that our office has done it is everyone on your team is expected in to be on one day, so you're kind of forced to
Mm.
see the people on your team.
Mm.
Um, and at first, everyone obviously had their hands up and their backs up. They're like, "No, we've been working good. We don't want to go into the office." And slowly, as time has gone by, the attendance has increased.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yep.
I sometimes think about it, and I sometimes do miss it. Just being there and socializing, and
Hmm.
but I don't know.
I know.
It's just hard to quantify, right? I'm here. I don't want to
Yes.
trade this for anything, but
For
Mhm.
I do
sure.
miss
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you,
So
if
again, I mean, I think there's a big piece around just what can we then do to increase our own social lives, right? Like, to also, if you are
Mhm.
someone who you're in a position where you are forced to work from home, you are someone who's like, your place is not offering a hybrid model. Yes, you're gaining so much, and you have so much opportunity to like cook dinner while you work, and maybe run out to the grocery store. No one's going to say anything. Like, you're gaining a lot of time back to do you and increase the quality of your life. But at the same time, if we think about it, how much more are we multitasking and how much more are we putting on our plates?
Yes. If you Google right now efficiencies of working from home versus in office work, the top three results, one of them is, on average, it's more efficient to work from home because of the not just the commute and the mental stress of the commute driving. Yes, it's just driving, but there is a stress there, just
Mhm.
focusing on the road and whatever.
Road rage.
Is on average, you work, instead of 5 days a week, you work 6. So what
Mhm.
employers get for the bang for the buck is a mentally healthier employee that works an extra day a week without asking. But then you have the boomers that are like, oh, I can't barcode you, so you're not working. Um,
Mhm.
so it is more efficient. However, one of the reasons is you can't separate work from personal, because
Mhm.
there's no here and there. That
Mhm.
means that you're always working and you're always personal, and
Mhm.
Right.
that is very mentally hard to unplug. And they had that, I'm not sure where it is in that bill that was passed, where people can't email you past a certain time. It was like some,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's Ontario or federal.
it's
Yeah.
Ontario, and it's the bill, it's the Right to Disconnect Act. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the idea that, like, you do past your whatever allotted hours of work, have the right to disconnect. Just because you're home and you're available by your email or your phone, you're not expected to continue working past the times that you've been scheduled or you're being paid to. honestly, I just think it's a wish-wash act. Like people are not going, like no one's really
Oh, for
following.
sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
The expectations have always, and I guess it depends on the field. Like I work in social services, so it's a little bit different. But when you work with people and humans and their lives, and you know their whole lives are at stake. Like you're not just like, sorry, I have the right to disconnect. Like I'm not going to answer my phone. But I think for people in more corporate settings, it's a little bit different. I think it's something you can probably use to your advantage to kind of say like I've done my 8 hours. Like I'm not going to be expected to push this project past the
Hmm.
times that I'm allotted to work, right? But like you did say that they're getting mentally healthier people who work an extra day more. I don't know about this mentally healthier piece.
For sure. Yeah, there it is, right? But then because you can't separate, you end up being more mentally unhealthy because of it. So it
Yeah.
basically is like you get super mentally healthy because you're working from home and you don't have the commute. And then there's almost this like buyer's remorse from new people to working from home that happens maybe about a month or two after
Yeah.
of it's higher stress than it was before. And that's
Mhm.
mainly due to what I think you're hinting at is, the human interaction piece, the
Mhm.
the lonely person that um, they don't have friends, they have coworkers. I know that's kind of maybe oversimplifying things, but like
Mhm.
people rely on those. And then when they get to go into the office, let's say they haven't been there in 2 months, forget
Yeah.
about productivity. If you got a hybrid model, just say that if you work 1 day a week, nothing's
Mm.
getting done.
That's your
You're just
social
gonna
day.
yeah, it's your
Yeah.
social day. You're going to go in. It's like if you're a doctor and you do see patients some days and you're in surgery, that's like the seeing patients on Friday.
Yeah.
Actually, Friday would be a good remote hybrid day.
A
Because if you
hundred
think
percent.
about it, you're
It's a
already
really good
checked
hybrid
out
day.
mentally. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're like, whatever. I don't, what's getting
Yeah,
done? No, it's a weekend, right?
yeah.
Um, and then, obviously what's probably helpful is, with higher stress and people tend to, um, higher stress always, not always, typically is more alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Because for the higher stress, you need something to depress it, to bring
Mhm.
it down. But
Mhm.
then that just snowballs and makes it worse. So even though it would seem like, yeah, like Friday, you really need that, whatever, it does not really, equate to anything better.
No,
We're
and
probably,
I think there have been studies done about like the increase of substance use since the pandemic, obviously, and
Oh, no
yes.
doubt.
yeah, people working from home and all these aspects, for sure. And again, this is the hard piece. Like yes, you get to work with no pants on, and you're still presentable and
It's like,
professional.
you want to tell my story before she's like, Paulina's like, can you save that for the pod? And I was like, listen, this is your first time on this thing. You're already like, you want a job, like, because you're awesome in every way. Like, it's like, oh, my mental health has increased since you come on this pod. Also, since not wearing pants,
Yeah,
like I was, Rui stepped away, and when he stepped away, he was in pajamas. So
yeah.
just so and I had two
Wait a minute. No,
calls
I wasn't.
on. Yeah, it's
Okay,
all
everyone,
it's like
stand up
dress
on
pants.
three.
Yeah, no,
Oh, no. Well,
no,
I'll pass.
I have to. Yeah, it's like it was like a client call and a employee call on the Friday last week. Both of them I had no pants on. I was just standing desk. I was like, my legs are getting so cold because I have a treadmill. So if the
Mhm.
treadmill's not on, like I'm freezing, right? And I'm like, all right, can we like, you don't want to make someone feel like you want to wrap it up, but like, standing 2 hours without pants in a basement and then like you're trying to be energy conservative. So you're freezing. But yeah, like and then you forget and then you're like, I don't know, standing desk for the win because, when you said that, stand up, you could be like, I'm already standing. What do you want me to? What do you want me to lower the desk? I'll lower it. Like, do you want me to sit down? Like, can you imagine if someone's like stand up and then you go below
It's
the
just like
camera? It's like,
lowering your desk. Yeah.
wait a minute. Yeah, yeah, like that
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog finger. Um, yeah, but yeah. Anyways, it's crazy. It's
There's for sure so many
pants.
benefits, and I think for people who do have already a rich, fulfilling life outside of work, and
Mhm.
who have a good, strong circle and have a lot of connections, this is just increasing their quality of life.
Hmm.
The one thing that I will say for those people is that be very mindful of your own boundaries. Be very mindful of the pressure that we put on ourselves, because I think
Mm.
a huge piece of what we do is we now say, well, I'm working from home, so I have to make sure that I do this personal list of things that I have to get done on top of the 8 hours of work that I also have to get done.
Right.
And now now we just merge the two, right? Whereas before we're like, well, this personal list can't get done because I'm working all day.
Right.
And it's just like what you're saying, the personal and the professional are mixing, and we're trying to get so many things done at once. So boundaries are huge. We need to establish, like, what are we doing? What are our goals? Be very realistic with yourself. Do not put this pressure on yourself to have to get so much done just because you're home. You're still working. This isn't leisure. And I think it's taking a lot of time for us to readjust our mindset to also not feel guilty that, okay, but because I'm home, I should do more. Or because I'm home, I should be working longer because I didn't have to go into the office. If this is the model that your employer has agreed to and set, it's not to increase expectations on what your productivity should be in that sense. Like, you're going to do what you're supposed to do, but do not put extra pressure on yourself, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, for sure. And self love is very important. And yeah, setting those boundaries are good. Like rest time is important. I was going to say sabbatical, but I meant to say Sabbath is important, meaning like you have no screen time. I couldn't sleep last night because I was editing videos for YouTube. But like I YouTubed like something, and an Eckhart Tolle video came up about how phones kind of distract us from stillness. And he said something fascinating, which helped me fall right asleep because his voice is very calming. He said, why is it that we live in this world where we've put up a lot of things to keep us constantly stimulated? It's almost like a deliberate attempt to avoid stillness. So I know this sounds very like pie in the sky hippie, past the Kool-Aid that kills you. But potentially sit in a room with no screens and do nothing. Like that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we
But
didn't we talk about this on the last podcast? We did, right?
Yeah.
Think about stillness and
Stillness. Yes.
yeah, something like
I
that. Anyways,
really
continue
like
with
how
your
that
thoughts.
was
Sorry.
said. Yeah, I really like how that was said. Can you repeat that? The
I have
last
no
piece
idea
of
what I
what he
said.
says deliberately. It's
Oh,
like we were
sorry. It's like, can I just tell you, like, I don't even know what
Logan
day of
speaks
the
off
week
the
it is.
cuff.
Yeah, like
yeah.
yeah,
I like
it's
that too.
like I have like I'm highly efficient and also highly disabled. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, maybe you need Paula's help after all, or Paulina's help. Sorry.
yes,
I keep
and
calling
since
you
she's
Paula.
down the street, since
Yeah, we're neighbors. We
Paulina,
just found
yeah,
out.
I'll walk to your house
Yeah, she's
and
like
then
5
have
minutes
that
from you.
human interaction, and then
Yeah.
like she's like, call the police. This guy's being weird. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but
100%.
no, he said if I
Just
can
walking
try
around with
again.
no pants.
Yeah, like well, yeah, it's actually getting warm enough. It's like, no, buddy, it's not.
It's okay for
You
work
know, it's like
though.
that.
Why can't it be okay here?
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's warmer near Paulina's house. Like, you start walking. It's like this in Milton. It's down the street. It's like, yeah, trust me. It's like, what are you talking about? Oh, he said, so we have all of these screens and Netflix and games and all of these things to keep us constantly stimulated. Coffee. It's almost as if we're going out of our way as a species to deliberately avoid stillness. And he
100%.
spoke about it in a way that he's like, I know that this is the way, right? Without being like a cocky prick, right? Like, because obviously
Yeah.
he's enlightened past the point to needing to tell people that he's enlightened. And he said that he's like, you don't need any of that. And he gave the analogy, you're sitting outside doing nothing, listening to the wind, the birds, the background, getting calm. Things are arising within you. And then, oh, you get a text message. You must look at it because the expectation we have is we must respond immediately. And his wife told him that. And he's like, why must I respond immediately? Why do I have to be available? So again, crazy, but if you can, when you get to 5 p.m., turn off your phone. Don't
Yeah.
don't go on screens. Don't look at screens. If you have a
Absolutely.
window that has a beautiful outside, that's the only screen that maybe you can look at, and maybe go outside and walk around. It's hard
Yeah.
in the winter for sure, but
Yeah.
It's not, but it's not. We live in Canada. We have boots. We have jackets. It's not hard.
for sure.
It's one of the conversations I have with my clients. So my kind of go-to is like typically we get an hour break. So my suggestion is always like you do a half-hour lunch and two 15-minute breaks. Do not leave it for you to just take this 1 hour and now you're like, what errands can I run in this 1 hour? Maybe I'll go do my groceries. Maybe I'll go do this. No, this 1 hour is a break for you. It's for your mental health, for you to take a step back, not to continuously stimulate yourself, just like exactly what you're
Mhm.
saying,
Yeah.
to the point where your brain's not getting any rest. You're so the mental load that we've put on ourselves, and really truly it is a lot to do with this work from home model. The
Mm.
mental load has increased so much to the point that we're just like these robots trying to produce and produce and produce,
Mm.
and we're not giving ourselves time to recharge, to even realize how much that would help our production and our productivity in
Yes.
general, right?
Yeah.
So we think like, well, I can't take a break, I have to produce. I promise you, what you're going to put together when you're like on 10% is not the same as what you're going to put together when you're on like 50 at least, right?
Mhm.
So take those two 15-minute breaks, take the half-hour lunch, eat, people. Don't just have coffee. People like
Wait,
you have
eat
no
people?
idea. No,
You're
yeah,
pro cannibal?
I see how that.
Are we getting back into Resident Evil now? Is that what we're talking about
No,
here?
no.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
because
Oh,
I
okay.
spoke when she was speaking, and what I've
Okay.
learned is I should listen.
Yes.
No, it did sound so. People eat. I'm talking to the audience. Like eat.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay.
sense. Valid.
People eat.
um.
People eat. People sleep.
People
Done.
meet.
Yeah. There you
People
go. There's
meet.
my advice.
Meet. Eat. People.
Yeah. All right. I see. You guys are going on tangent now.
So
Thanks.
yeah, you gotta save us.
You
You know
know,
it.
speaking of you're talking about 15-minute, 30-minute as opposed to 1 hour, right?
Hmm.
But that whole system is wacky, right? Whether you
Yeah.
take 15 or 1 hour, they're still turning you into some kind of some boomer kind of punch clock automaton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have
Scheduled.
however much time you need
Oh,
to eat the
1,000%.
food that you want,
Mm.
when you feel like eating it, when you're hungry and not at these exact intervals. They should kind of do away with that whole thing just for our kind of mental health, right?
Like a Terry Fox hot
They
dog
should do
that's
away with all of it.
across Canada, and it's
Well,
like,
listen,
sorry,
man.
my lunch takes a long time to eat.
I'm eating a human leg. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a
Yeah,
bit.
so one bite at
Okay.
a time.
So yes, I agree with you 1,000%. In an ideal world, we're like, okay, here's what you need to get done. Here's the expectation of your job. If as long as you produce, I don't care how you do it.
Right. And this is
And
the beauty of being a developer and being able to work from home is
yeah.
that freedom is we're not bound by that. No, we're not bound by that control. So we're completely
Okay.
free and absolved of that insanity.
So let me challenge you. How many breaks do you take in a day?
I'm on break right now. I'm breaking all the time.
You're
I'm
not.
on
I
break.
know you're not. I know
I'll
you're
answer.
not.
I'll answer that properly, Paulina.
Thank you.
I've worked from home more than I have in the past, I don't know, 4 years. And my wife's like the other day, so do you think this summer you'll do gardening work?
Yeah.
But I used to love it. I don't leave this desk. Like, I do not leave this basement. I'm like a prisoner in my own house, which used to be the
Mhm.
place that I love. And now it's turning into something that gives me anxiety when I look around.
Yeah.
Dungeon now.
It's a dungeon, and when my wife unlocks the basement door or puts through the bologna under the door for my
Mhm.
lunch, and if she lets me out, like, do I go outside? No,
No.
like, because
Why would you?
outside is not completing tasks.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if I don't complete, and as soon as you complete a task, you don't take time to like appreciate or like reflect. You're like, okay, what's next? And
Right.
that is the dopamine greed cycle, because greed cannot be satisfied with greed. And then the
Yeah.
higher that you have, that is more you get. And what I found is the antagonist to dopamine is serotonin. You want to feel very bad about yourself, complete more tasks. You want to
Yeah.
feel even worse about your life, complete even more. If you did 100 last week, if you do 200 this week, you'll be more depressed this week than you were last.
Yeah.
It's not about completing more or doing better. It's about taking that time. Like, even Jeff Bezos he's, arguably, prick for the most part. Like, I don't think a lot of people are like, yeah, he's such a cool, nice guy in terms of what he's kind of contributed to the world of late. But he even said that, no, I'd rather get an 8 hours sleep.
Right.
I wouldn't want to produce anything mentally if I wasn't well rested. And
Mhm.
if you're always cranking dopamine by completing tasks, by the time you get to bedtime, you have not enough serotonin to convert into melatonin.
Mhm.
So unplugging is probably a great idea. Like 5, boom, no
Yeah.
bright
Yeah.
lights, no screens.
I was working on a project from 7 in the morning last week, and it was 3 p.m. I realized I didn't have a coffee, a bite of food. Time just flew. I did not know what time it was until it was 3 p.m. I
Yeah.
had to pick up my son from school, and
Mm-hmm.
I was unaware. So yeah,
So here's a wild
it's
concept.
messed up.
So here's a wild concept. You said like this boomer mentality of like these 30 minutes, 15 and 15.
Yeah.
I think we're in a place in the world where now it used to be like, can't have your, do you remember the days where it was like, do not have your phone out when you're working? Like you can't have your phone on you.
Oh yeah.
So we've gone from this like instillment of like, make sure you take, these are your breaks and you're not allowed to socialize outside of this, to now make sure you take this 30 minutes and this 15 minutes because our employees are burning out.
Right.
And this what it used to be, this kind of like boomer mentality of like, okay, you're only allowed to lunch at this time, is almost moving towards a place where we're forcing people to take time, and we're having
Right.
to put in the right to disconnect acts that are not really, yes, there's obviously the employer piece of this, but a lot of it is self-served. A lot of it is
Mhm.
us not respecting our own boundaries. A lot of it is us not appreciating ourselves, our time, and our humanity enough, and not respecting ourselves enough to say, no, I need this. And this project is not more important than me eating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do the
Yeah.
next one
I
if I don't
suppose. Yeah.
eat, right? So
Yeah.
I think this concept of like, these time frames, we need guidelines, we need time frames. If we don't set schedule, we don't function on just a fly, because when you
Right.
do, this is what happens. You sit at a desk from 7 till 3 and you don't move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
then
true. Yeah.
65, you retire, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do some gardening, and then you
Yeah,
go out there and have a heart attack, and your face
yeah,
goes
Yep.
right in the dirt because you're not
100%.
used to moving your body. So I have a treadmill underneath my standing desk,
I
and I
love
walk
that.
10K a day
Amazing.
at 5 kilometers an hour, I think, or whatever 5 speed is. Like I am sweating after maybe 5 minutes, and
Mhm.
then I'll turn it off for the calls because I'm obnoxious, but not that obnoxious.
To be
Um,
panting on your calls,
yeah,
okay.
to be panting, like, oh, what's wrong? It just escaped a tiger. But I mean, even that I find is just like, if you get physically healthy,
Mhm.
it definitely helps with everything in the world, because like, we're hunter gatherers, right? So we're not like, if you look at a lot of the societies that don't have screens and they're just like, going out there, getting food, going back, they look at like the Western society as like a bunch of Neanderthals, where we're like looking at, certain tribes that, are, don't go into a population at all, that are disconnected, language we've never heard of, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
they're like, what are these people doing? Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a funny thing on TikTok that the person said, oh, why don't you want to go to America and like live the American dream? And he said, in whatever they had to translate, he's like, is that America, is that the place where they jump off the buildings?
Mhm.
Because they don't do that, because the mental health there is like,
Yeah.
they don't prescribe SSRIs or antidepressants. What they do
Mhm.
is they say, okay, you're feeling depressed. I want you to go and do something for someone else. And apparently
Mhm.
that is much better to
I
do
love that. Yeah.
than
Right.
taking medication to inhibit serotonin so it makes more. It's like, no, if you want to make more serotonin, you do less work.
Yeah. Well, they're
What
concerned with survival, right? Survival
Mhm.
of the self. So a little
Yeah.
bit different than what we're concerned about, right?
Mhm.
You don't think we're concerned with the survival of our
No, I mean
group
none of
here?
us have to go out and kill something for food and have to skin it, or else we don't eat that evening, right? That's our
No.
survival of the
Mm.
body. There's nobody in that situation here, and that's
I
why
think
we have a lot of mental issues, right?
I know what Pauline's going to say, but go ahead.
I And no, I'm just saying, I think that we underestimate just because we're not going out there and we're not having to hunt and gather. I don't think that what we do is killing our people. I don't think that, I think we underestimate how much of this hustle and bustle and this grind that we're so used to is deteriorating our population and is
Mm.
turning, like, we have to think, like, what is the next 2 generation going to look like? Right? Like, what is that? Like, are we producing people who are going to be healthy, ready to, like, sustain our group,
Mm.
to sustain our
No,
people?
probably not, but not here in the West, but there are places where they will sustain humanity for sure, just not here, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not here. I don't see
Yeah.
how that's possible, right?
I just don't see how we're gonna, like, move past this, right? Like, how are we
Mental
gonna
health
sustain?
has always been around, right? But look
Yeah.
at some tribes, they may have mental health issues, but they're busy, they have things to do to survive, to keep other people alive.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
don't have time to think about anxiety and breathing into a paper bag. They don't have paper bags,
Yeah. They
right?
also,
Like,
again, they're not as unhealthy, right? Because they're outside, they're, working with their body. And,
yeah.
going back to what I was saying about how I got way more mentally fit by becoming physically fit in the
Yeah.
past 2 years.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now I can output much more work. But am I doing much more downtime? No, even less than ever.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, more mentally, good because of the physical, but I'm like taking less breaks than ever. It's
Mhm.
Yeah.
brutal.
I mean, one good example is the Hekawi tribe in southern, I forget where they're, southern Brazil. They're a great example of people who have their faculties completely in order, but they're a bit short, right? They're about 3 feet, and they march through the woods, and they're typically always chanting, "Where the heck are we? Where the heck are we?" But I'm not entirely sure if that aids their mental health or just kind of makes it a little more I don't know, resilient. But
Yeah.
they definitely have don't have self-esteem issues, right?
Mhm.
Our
Yeah. I
self-esteem
mean,
issues don't come from from.
wait, what? Why were you guys laughing? Did you think I was making
And
that up?
no, I didn't know where that was going, to be honest.
Oh,
They have a mobile app though, right?
who?
Oh,
That tribe.
I'm serious. Look them up. They're
I
a
feel
real
like I need
tribe.
to come
3 foot
back.
pygmies.
Oh, okay. So it was a true thing, but then the pun was just a slice through, like, because I thought the pun decredited this story, but it's true.
Wait,
This is
what
a real
was the
tribe.
pun? Can you point out the pun to me? I'm not sure what it
Oh,
was.
yeah, I got a pun for you. So my favorite type of joke and rapper is
Yeah,
a big pun. There you go. Then that's a double entendre plus a
that is a double
pun.
entendre.
Like, when you're adding up you're like, okay, so he ordered 2 fish sticks with a side of cheese, and it's like, and then you're like, that was $50. Okay, thank you. But my best dad joke happened, when my kids were born, because I think before then it was just jokes,
Mm,
right?
I don't think
obviously,
I'm
obviously.
literally not witty enough to keep up with these. Like, I'm not.
Logan, that was a good one though.
Which one? The
The
tribe
last
or
one.
the
No, the
the
last
big
one.
the big pun?
No, the one after that.
Oh, the what did I say?
I don't know, something about
See what I mean? Like, it's just gone. Like,
something
it's
about
like it's like
dad
I have a
jokes.
short-term amnesia. What did I say? Yeah, like there's something missing, but there's
Yeah,
something extra. You know what I mean?
definitely something extra.
Yeah, like, how they have like the spectrum, but then they have like the ultraviolet spectrum. That's like
Yeah.
it's like that's where I am. It's like just up here.
That's
They're
a
like,
good
you
place
can't
to
see
be.
that without glasses. Yeah.
It's a good
Well,
place to
thank
be.
you. I don't love myself as much as I should.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
you
You should love
should,
yourself
and
for
you
sure.
should, and
Yeah.
I think, like, a few things that you
Still
brought
love
up that
yourself right
were,
now.
yeah, not on camera, not on camera.
Yeah.
We don't,
Pants.
yeah, we don't hear the panting. Um, okay, so I think one of the things that you brought up that was really good was the self-love piece, and you kind of
Mhm.
unintentionally brought up mindfulness without meaning to bring up, I think, mindfulness, but
Mhm.
um, that time to, like, step away, to disconnect. It's not, sometimes we simplify it by saying, just, put your phone on silent and don't answer your notifications. Like, realistically, we have responsibilities. Like, dinner time, how many of us are like, maybe not us, but there's other people where they're like, my kid needs to eat and they're not eating, I'm putting on the TV for them to eat. Like, it's almost, at this day and age, so impossible to step away from I know it's a big no-no. I'm just saying there are people
Mm.
who resort to things, maybe the ones who have like 6 kids and they're like trying to find sanity in any
Yes.
ounce of they can. But I think it's about just being mindful about this and
Mhm.
not kind of saying like trying to. A lot of people simplify it to the point that they're hoping life will just give them time for this. Life will just
Right.
let them step away, or when things are less busy, I'm going to try to implement this. When things are not as hectic and my to-do list is not as long, I'm going to try to make some more time to just be still and have some peace and quiet. Life's
Mhm.
never getting less busy. I can promise you that. There's
Yeah.
never
Right.
going to be a
Right.
time in your life when you're like, okay, now
Mhm.
doesn't
Now's the
exist.
time.
It's not going to
Mhm.
happen. So what are we
Mhm.
waiting
Right.
for? The same thing with exercise, right? People are like, when I have time, I'm going to start exercising. You never are going to have time to exercise. Like your life is not just going to give you
Mhm.
this window of time. So,
Right.
it's the same thing with mindfulness, like finding time in your day to one, like you said, appreciate the things that you're doing, appreciate your productivity, appreciate the tasks that you're completing, give yourself some actual affirmation of, holy crap, like I'm doing a really good job and I'm so bomb at what I'm doing, to
Mhm.
the point that I deserve to eat. So maybe I should step
Mhm.
away, grab my lunch, sit outside for a little bit. It's springtime now. Sit on your porch. I don't care where you
Mhm.
go. But just take the lunch outside. Don't bring your phone with you. Give yourself that 15 minutes. And I'm going to go
Mhm.
back to those boomer boundaries that Rui called them, but they're needed because if you don't have them, you're just a
Mhm.
free flow and you're never making time. You're not putting in time in your schedule to actually give yourself that minute to be still. So be intentional, be mindful with it. Actually
Mhm.
set time aside, schedule these things as if it was a meeting because otherwise you're never going to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, like even use your Outlook calendar to say, I
Yeah.
blocked off this time to
Yeah.
work out, or I blocked off this time for, lunch or mental health
Mm.
or just going for a walk. And then when people schedule stuff, they'll see that your availability is off. And then my other tip for people that are listening that are, going through stuff is like the treadmill work for me. And also when you're on a meeting and you can't walk, I have like these at the side of my desk, right? So
Mm.
I basically have them like basically at the side, and you can imagine, and I'm just kind of doing like wrist curls which help with whatever. And you can't really you probably didn't know that I was doing that for
I
a little
actually
bit.
thought you were gonna pick up a bottle. I'm sorry, my
Yeah, oh,
brain
what
went
I got
somewhere
here
else
is a bottle of 50% moonshine. And for those that like to take Zoom meetings and hate their boss, what you want to do is just take it out during the video call and make one of those like, like no, like right, like listen, man, like
Or get a
highly
straw.
optimized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's a great idea. I actually read, I think my husband told me once he read this study where it was saying that for people working from home, even if you do sitting down, if you do calf flexes with your toes, like you literally like
Mm.
lift your like put pressure on your toes, flex your
Mhm.
calves, and do that on and off throughout the day, that
Mm.
increases your like that alone counts almost like towards like an exercise or movement for your
Yeah,
body
for
and the way
sure.
that your body. I don't know, like I could probably send you a link once we do find this and the theory behind it,
Yeah.
but it's just the small things you can do while you're still trying to obviously be productive. But no
I'm
matter
just
what,
doing that
all of
right now, and
yeah,
my legs are numb. Like I realized, like, wow, like I can't even, like, it hurts so bad to do that. Just
right?
lift your toes all the way up and then
And
push
then
them all
flex
the
your
way
calves.
down. It
Yeah,
hurts because I think
yeah.
that there's like a lack of blood flow when you're sitting. Like even in the best chairs,
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
say sitting is the new smoking, but quite honestly, stagnancy or like staying in one spot is the new
Yeah.
smoking. There is
Yeah.
a good guy on Upright Health. He went really popular on YouTube. He had some good tips too. If you got like a laptop, work from home, if you sit and then you're on a mouse and keyboard docked, you could also lie on the ground and then like just put your feet in some weird position, like get your body all like
Yeah.
pretzeled for some reason, and then maybe you have your laptop up here. Just keep moving around. Like don't
Yeah.
sit all day.
And to
Yeah.
you, like I know a lot, obviously you have a whole setup in the basement, but a lot of people have been putting their offices in a basement. Just
Mhm.
because now an expectation is you don't have an office, but you need a space, like we're not paying you more for it, but you need to
Yep.
dedicate a space of your home to a private office that you can have meetings without disrupt, like, right? And most people can't do that. They can't dedicate a whole bedroom to an office or whatever it may be.
Right.
But if you are able to, when you are not having meetings, unplug your laptop, go sit on at your kitchen or at your dining room table where there's windows and you're getting some natural light, it
Sun.
makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Vitamin D,
Yeah.
right in the morning, right in your eyeballs. Don't look at
Mhm.
it directly.
Yeah.
And, that's the only vitamin I would ever recommend to anyone just take is like at least 10,000 UI of vitamin D
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah.
And the thing, since it's a fat soluble vitamin, really doesn't absorb, right? So if you take a teaspoon of MCT oil, maybe about 10 minutes before the vitamin D, you can pretty much double, I don't know, efficaciously what the actual amount is, but you do feel it a much more. And I never had that growing up. I would just be like,
Mhm.
I'm sad. I don't know why, right? In the winter
Yeah.
time. But I'd say your kids for sure, not the Flintstone ones, not the ones with a bunch of sugar, but just like, they even have D
There's
drops that you can put
D
in
drops
their
for your
Yeah.
kids,
oatmeal or, yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
not just in the winter, for the summer too. Like this is one of the most underrated. We're literally in these institutions with light deprived institutions,
Mhm.
especially the basement where it's
Mhm.
colder, lack of blood flow, lack of sun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, sunlight's very important because you get that sun in your face in the morning. That's your high amount of, I don't know, whatever it is, your adrenaline. And then you have that dopamine that converts to serotonin throughout the day. You're
Yeah.
very happy if you get the sun. And then eventually serotonin converts to melatonin. That's when you get like melatonin,
Yeah.
and you like
Yeah.
calm down and sleep. And for the parents out there that are giving their kids with all, within reason, melatonin, which is a hormone, for some reason you can buy this hormone just in a vitamin form, that
Mhm.
is detrimental in so many ways. Now
So
there
so what
are
is it for? To calm them down?
yes, some parents will just like, my kid can't sleep. I give him an iPad all day long. Why can't he sleep? And then they hit him with melatonin, which is a hormone, which you're not
Mhm.
supposed to take exogenous hormones in children, especially because they're developing mentally and physically. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
melatonin for me is the conversion of serotonin into melatonin, not melatonin directly. That's like
Yeah.
saying, I don't even care if you were happy today.
Yeah.
Here's all the happiness in the form of tiredness. It just messes you up, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
There are people that do need to take it for, obviously reasons, or the kids, but that is the worst thing to do. I would say that anyone taking like melatonin to sleep as a sleep aid
Mhm.
should take high amounts of vitamin D in the morning because
Mhm.
Right.
that will convert to melatonin much more
Mhm.
naturally than taking exogenous melatonin or,
Yeah.
so
Have you ever
yeah,
heard of
that's,
ashwagandha?
yes. And that has
Is
melatonin
that
in it.
melatonin? Yeah.
Yeah. And ashwagandha is like, it also has some psychedelic effects. Like if I take too
Oh,
much
does it?
ashwagandha, I'm like I went in my hot tub on like too much ashwagandha at night. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, there's going to be a bear that's going to hop the fence and just like maybe have a shot of vodka with me and then
Nice.
probably kill me after.
A
It's
Russian
just like,
bear,
it was,
nice.
yeah, because he
Yeah.
was in a hurry. He was rushed. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. See, how do we get on backtrack? Back on
I don't
track with that?
know,
It's like,
but I will add to that,
hmm,
magnesium is a huge piece.
yes,
A lot of
such an
people, yeah, a lot of people underestimate their, they jump to melatonin, they jump to sleep medication, without
Mhm.
even doing blood work to check, like, do you have a deficiency in magnesium, which is very easy for us to get, and the kids as well. A lot of kids do end up having a
Oh,
deficiency
yeah?
in magnesium. Yeah, so
Yeah, but
bananas.
then you
yep.
need to take iron, right? Iron to kinda, activate the magnesium, or is it the other way around?
Oh, I don't know.
Like,
I'm
one
not
of
a
them you have to
doctor.
take together, iron and magnesium
Yeah,
or
there is some of
magnesium and
that.
iron.
I
Yeah.
can't remember,
I
but yeah,
do I do take
magnesium's.
both as
Mhm.
just like in
Right.
general because I have low magnesium and iron, so I take both, but I don't know. Yeah.
Hmm.
This.
There's also something that stops, I think dairy prevents you from absorbing iron. Like I was told not to
Mm.
eat dairy with iron when I take my iron pills.
Yeah, everything affects something
Yeah.
else, but generally, if you're doing something other than nothing, you're going to be better off. So, like,
Right.
as
100%.
long as you're an advocate for your progressive, better mental health, you're in a better spot than people that are smoking and getting drunk and not even
Of
looking at their
course.
kids. Like, chuck them an iPad.
And that's such a
There's like
huge
two.
piece. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's like two types of it's called, not melatonin. What you're saying, what was your
Magnesium?
supplement again? Magnesium. That Dr. Andrew Huberman recommends. Like one is like magnesium threonate, and then one of them is by something eight. Like one of them's more, the second one's more common, the other one's more, expensive but harder to get, because there is like 10 different variants of magnesium. So
Yeah.
just don't blindly buy magnesium.
Yeah.
And do your research. You don't want to cheap out on, don't get the McDonald's of magnesium. But
Yeah.
majority of the world, they say, is like deficient in that electrolyte. So like sodium, magnesium, potassium. But that's a great example. Bananas, right? Like if people want to eat a lot of those, go bananas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, natural, right? And I just sometimes it's very overwhelming. And I do have some clients, especially like parents or like parents of like kids, like young kids, who are so overwhelmed with this whole concept of like, how do I keep my kids healthy? And so much stress comes with that too, is like, well, what supplements do I give them? It's so overwhelming. My doctor says nothing, right? Then you have the doctors, right, who will be like,
Yeah.
they don't need anything. They're fine. They get it as long as they have a rich diet. Okay, great. What's a rich diet for a picky kid? Like that's hard. So, I always recommend, like, do get in touch with a naturopath. Do work with people who do specialize with these things, who can really guide you and help you. And also, something is better than nothing. Start small,
Mhm.
right? Do your research about one thing. Like you said, vitamin D, start with that. Do your research about that, implement it, and then just start small. Don't try to be it all and end all and get it all right instantly, because it takes time for people to get to a place where they've really figured out a good regime for themselves. Nevertheless, they're kids. So
Right.
just start somewhere, right?
And this is
Um,
all for the mental health, of course. This is all for the mind,
Of course. Well, it's physical, mental, like
right?
it's all connected, right? Like we have
Yeah.
to be physically well to be mentally well. We have to make sure
Right.
that we're like the supplements and just that we're that's the number one thing. So typically when I meet with my clients, one of the first questions is like, what supplements are you taking? What is your medical
Mhm.
history? What does your health look like? I can't support your mental health without understanding your physical health. If you're someone that's chronically ill and you're having a lot of physical health issues that could be connecting, that 100% not could be, but they are,
Yeah.
connecting to your mental health, and we have to be able to work on both. I can't just tell you, well, my counseling supports are going to help you to not feel depressed when the medication you're taking is causing you to be depressed, right? So
Right.
it's one is tied with the other, always.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you know what the worst thing is like people just like, oh, I'll take this vitamin, right?
Hmm.
But then I feel like we're like, humanity's not in the spot right now. We're like, okay, I'll take this vitamin. And then where's the like, how they have for diabetes, where they could check their insulin, and like they could put
Is that
something
like
in
the
you, like,
freestyle or like,
yeah,
yeah,
why
yeah.
can't I get that for a full
I
blood check,
know,
right?
I
Because can you
know.
imagine, people are like, vitamins right now are like this, and maybe in like 30 years they won't be, hopefully. People are like, I'll just pop vitamins, and I think that's fixing it, but they don't test after to see how that affect them.
Right.
So I like, one of the things that, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, but I do want to get back into more like every 2 weeks getting blood tests, because if you're
Hmm.
making micro adjustments, how do you measure those as
Yeah,
whether they're effective or not? Maybe you've
yeah.
got a real bad batch of vile omega, which has a lot of mercury in it, and now you notice that your levels are all messed up because you cheaped out on a vitamin or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to constantly be monitoring that stuff if you're an advocate for your physiology and you're trying to get things right, because most optimal looks and feels different than spiked or deprived
Hmm.
in a certain area.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm obviously not a naturopath. I'm not a doctor. I'm not like giving any of that advice. But since there is a lot of,
Disclaimer.
just from what I've read too, yeah, disclaimer here, there is a lot of um, research that supports the difference between synthetic and naturally sourced vitamins. I think there's a
Mhm.
huge piece to kind of read into that, and to look, like you're saying, the quality of the stuff you're taking, because I don't know. We're in a easy fix society, right? Like my back hurts, I need a new mattress. This like rather than, okay, maybe I need to stretch and exercise and move my body.
Mhm. Yep.
We're just the same thing with vitamins. Like, oh, I don't sleep well, I'm going to take melatonin. rather than cut back my screen time. So again, and I don't blame people, right? Like I don't blame people because to an extent, like when you're in this hustle and bustle society, like when do you have time to do this research? When do you have time to be an expert at this? We can't be experts at everything. And it
Right.
is really time consuming to find the right information, to have supportive research. Unfortunately, from my personal experience, our doctors are not the people who are going to give us the information that we're looking for. We're lucky to get 15 minutes, you know? So where are we finding this? But I do think there are professionals, like for example, in terms of mental health, you need strategies on how to increase some of your quality of life and find ways to kind of get past the sleep deprivation, get past the mental load, the stress that you're feeling, and figure out how to manage it. Go to an expert. You want to increase your vitamins? Go to an expert. Go to the people who know how to help you with this. Don't just try to be an expert yourself at it all, because there's a reason why people have their professions, right? And I think we minimize that sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. And if you have 15 minutes with your doctor and she's got to like compress what you've been going through the past 3 months, there's no chance. Some advice that I was given that I implemented: if you're going to go to your family doctor, like come strapped, meaning that like
Yeah.
you've spent weeks preparing and saying, hey, this is the research I've done. This is what I think. What do you think? Because like if you don't do that, this is what doctors typically do, especially I find to females, because I just feel like, you go in there and you're like, this is how I feel. And they're like, oh, you're just a mom. Right. Like sometimes it's like that where I'm like, but like, I guess for men, it's a little different where I heard someone talking about this on podcasts in Canada. It's like, okay, if you want a prescription for X and you've done your research, you better show up in emergency with your leg off. Right.
Yeah.
Where in the US, it's basically a Skype call or a Zoom call. And this is what I was thinking about, trying to optimize whatever. And then they, digitally fax or EDI the script to your pharmacy.
Wow.
The access to medication is much easier in the US, where a lot of Canadian entrepreneurs are setting up, shop in the US, but not Canada, because Canada is too hard to get into that space.
Right.
Yeah, it's very difficult. So come with some research already, and then what you recommend, but your doctor can obviously, be the final say, or say, no, let's try this first.
Yeah.
But if you do that, don't show up at your doctor and say, hey, you got a tummy ache, and what do you think? And they'll be like, yeah, get out of here. Right. Like you have to like have some kind of like do the work for them, and they'll be like almost like the trigger, but you got to build the whole, lack of
You're
better
preparing the case.
gun.
You're preparing the
We're
case.
talking about
You
mental
really are.
health.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
You are like
Yeah.
you're preparing your case, like, and you have to almost think ahead, right? Like, what are they going to ask? What are they going to want to know? We do this with our kids, but we don't think about doing that with ourselves, right? So if your child is sick and you're going to take them to the doctor, you prepare this whole case of like what I've tried, what I've done, the symptoms,
Yeah.
what it's been happening, what's the normal pattern, how is this different? We prepare this whole case because the child can speak for themselves. So when you're going for yourself, you have to do the same thing. Prepare your whole case of what's been going on. I know a lot of people are like, recently I've been hearing this, but you're going to a doctor and you're like, okay, I'm here for X, Y, and Z. They're like, well, we're going to tackle X, but if you want to talk about Y and Z, you have to come back and book another appointment. There's been a lot of like, I think since like, again, pandemic, I think family doctors are getting a lot of pushback in terms of their practice and how they're treating patients. And there's a lot of stop to like virtual appointments.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of pushback in different ways, but I think one of them is the billing piece, and they're cutting down on kind of like, if you're going in there, expect to just talk about the one thing.
Yeah, be an advocate for your own health, do your research, kind of be ready, build your case. As a person that like I've openly admitted that like maybe 10 years ago I had a lot of issues with depression during the winter and stuff, and I was like trying to fix all of that stuff. And for me, I noticed it when and like I've been fine ever since, with vitamin D, proper exercise, getting light. Is that it's if it feels not normal, like not your normal self, it's probably worth talking to someone before it gets too bad. I remember just driving in one day, it's like a very long time ago. I'm like, I really dislike myself, right? I really don't like but the thoughts were coming from not me. It was almost like they were like imposed on me. I was like, what? I was like, that wasn't even me. Like, I don't normally feel that way. And that is really the body's way of telling like, hey, look, things aren't right here. And for me and I would say it's, for a lot of people, it's like that whole, you wake up in the morning at like 5 or whatever, it's dark, and you get out of the institution when it's dark. And for me, it was a lack of sunlight and being outside and fresh air. But yeah, if you don't, people advocate for your own, mental, physical health. And also, everyone listening to this, everyone in the world has the right to feel happy. If you're not happy, seek that out. You don't have to say, you know what, this is, I guess, as good as it gets. No, it can get better.
Don't
But
settle.
don't get
Don't
greedy,
settle.
right? But don't settle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but how do you find that balance, right? Don't settle, but don't get greedy. Like,
It's
where's
almost
the
like
balance?
Yeah, it's almost like situational based, where you're like, imagine you got a raise from your boss, you're super happy, but then you're like, can I get another raise? Like, that's obviously an extreme example.
I mean, you climb a mountain, then you're super happy, your adrenaline's at the top. Then there's another mountain to climb. There's always going to be a mountain to climb.
Yeah,
is there
I would say
ever a point where you're like, this is it, I'm at the peak of my happiness? There is no peak, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing of the seeking and the completion of tasks. With greed, there's never, when I'm saying, you shouldn't be unhappy, it's like you should, happiness for me, and a lot of like people online that I hear that are Buddhist meditation practitioners, either religiously or secularly, meaning non-religious meditation, mindfulness practice, like John Kabat-Zinn and other people in the medical space of meditation for mindfulness, and growing gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is empathy and all of that, is not from seeking and dopamine, like task 1 complete, task 2 complete. That will never create, well, not never, but like that will never fulfill you from the inside. Like, you need to feel happy without trying. And that to me is really, just not completing things, but just, I would say unplugging for me has been like, you ever just like have a nap and then you wake up, you're like, man, I feel great. That the equivalent of that for being awake is kind of doing nothing or unplugging and not being hitting screens. Or what you're saying, Paulina, is connecting with someone you love, connecting with a friend, a family member, and just having that human level of interaction. Like, hey, did you hear this? Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, that does suck. Let's go beat them up. Like that kind of stuff, right? Like, a mob mentality. For me, that's mental health at its prime.
Right.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
I also think like being intentional, and I think planning. We sometimes just get so used to just like go and like complete task 8, and we're hoping this gives us the satisfaction that we're looking for, without really examining like, what are my core values? Who am I as a person, and what's bringing me joy? What is it in my life that I'm seeking? What's my purpose? Like, without getting deep, we're always going to hit surface, right? We're never actually going to feel that true fulfillment and that true satisfaction if we're just always hitting surface. So look at it like, what actually gives you that great feeling of achievement? Is it having quality time with your kid? Is it getting that promotion? Is it working towards finding a new job? Do you want to change careers? Is it like, what's doing it for you, right?
It sounds like happiness is just a collection of these high points in your life. It's just a collection of moments, and not necessarily a state that we are in, but a collection of moments, right?
It's a spectrum.
And if that's the case, if life is just a collection of happy moments, the opposite of that would be sadness. So it's just sadness with a collection of happy moments. Is that?
Yes. And that is the most succinctly way I've ever heard it put.
I know. You just like crack the code.
That's exactly you. So you got it. So like just put a TM at the end, or like but so that is exactly it. That's how I would say majority of humanity is.
Yeah.
However, the reality is flipped, right? It's a collection of sadness. But your state, like, that's pretty bad, raise mental health, like a lot of sad events, but your state is happiness. It comes from within. It's not like the reverse. Like, that is true.
So that whole mental health maybe comes from a lack of acceptance, right? Like not being able to face what's reality and what's not, and accepting the fact that life is, and like that. That's the timeline of life, right?
It is, and it's and if we don't have this bigger picture in mind, right? If we don't have
Mhm.
these like greater goals and this like that life is bigger than just these moments, these
Mhm.
small
Yeah.
moments of like bad things that are happening, and these no matter how great, like it could be your loved one passing, but it is a chapter, it's a moment in your life, and life is bigger than
Mhm.
that. And if we lose sight of that, and if we focus on these moments, and there can be times in your life when there is one after the other,
Yeah.
we spiral into a deep 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 hole of life really sucks right now, and it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that but this is not forever, it's
Mhm.
just where we are right now. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's why when I talk, again, one of the things I do with my client is just so much goal planning and talking about like what's your purpose, what is life for you, what do you want to achieve, what's going to bring you happiness, have
Mhm.
things to look towards and focus on.
Right.
And we're as humans, we're having to constantly produce, we're having to constantly change and to create new goals and meet our goals. That's the only
Mhm.
way we do feel that accomplishment. But when we focus on the wrong ones, like all of our joy coming from just clicking off our tasks to-do list at work, we're never going to get that, right? So it has to
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
true to our values and to our core and to who we are. So a lot of
Yeah.
looking in as to like who am I, what do I want, what does happiness mean to me, um,
Right.
Mhm.
and then basing your to-do list on off of that.
Mm.
Yep. And if you work extra and harder, you'll be even more unhappy.
Mhm.
And I said moron, like moron, happy, because, and more on that later, because if you're, um, I would,
Logan's the
yeah, the
pun
more,
king.
yeah,
I
I'm big
can't
pun.
keep up, man. This is so good.
I had a whole thing, lost it. So anyways, so as you can see, we're just clearly scratching the surface on mental health. Like I know I speak on behalf of everyone listening and that ever will listen. Pauline, we'd love to have you back for another round two. N meaning like indefinitely. You're an incredible value
Thank
add to the
you.
entire planet. Anytime you
Oh
speak
my
about
gosh.
trying to help people feel better about themselves, where there's not enough awareness around this stuff. There probably never will be. And
Yeah.
as long as you're ushering in that, you probably die happy because you helped people, almost like a charity that you get paid for, which is a blessing. Um,
It's
yeah.
a good
And
gig. It's a good gig. I can't lie.
yeah. And one thing I would say for me as well is, I know this sounds oversimplifying, but if we're saying that completing tasks will never bring happiness or meaningful happiness, I've found doing nothing extremely meaningful.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like almost like you're like you look back at the end of the day and you're like, what I do? I'm like nothing.
Yeah.
And then the next day when you're at work, you're like, let's go. You're like fired up. It's almost like you're recharged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you'll never dig your way out of the hole. Like you're
Yeah.
digging down, right? You have to not dig, and then the dirt, I guess, pushes you back up to the surface, right?
That's a
Like
really
don't
great
do
analogy.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
can financially afford to not do anything, don't do it. And if they give you 4 tasks to complete that day, don't tell them that you completed the fourth one at noon, because they'll give you 3 more.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. Be
don't
intentional with
don't tell
that.
them.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
intentional with your days and your time, and respect yourself as a not just as an employee, but just really as a person. Like at the end of the day, we're not just these AI robots that are here to produce like X amount of work. Like we're people. So there
Mhm.
has to be we can't lose that humanity. We can't lose this like idea that we're still humans that are trying to live
Right.
a whole life that's complicated as it is on its own, without having to feel like we're constantly needing to produce for someone else so that way we can live, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
We're
sure.
people. We're
What
not
did
like hooked.
what are some changes you guys are gonna make? My two work from home buddies
Yeah.
here.
Changes.
Yeah. I'm gonna
I'm not
clear my
entirely
schedule.
sure. Clear my
Just
schedule.
gonna I'm
I
just
have a
gonna go
couple of meetings
outside.
this afternoon. Oh, yeah. I guess step outside.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
I like
You
it.
got
Which
some
I
beautiful sun
rarely
on.
do. But
I have two things. Rui, you're gonna take lunches.
I took
Like
lunch. I
you're gonna
had
eat,
No,
fish and chips.
no,
not
man.
at
Like
your desk.
No,
Not
I'm
at
hey,
your
fine.
dude.
desk.
Hey, wait. Hey.
What's
Drive,
up?
Rui. Drive over to my house. Okay, I got something
Yes.
for you.
There you
What do
I
go.
you
won't
have?
be home. I won't be home, but we'll have to reschedule. But drive over here anyways. No, I'm just kidding. No, okay, drive over. I'll make it worth your while, and this will kind of you need to get out. Okay, don't say, oh, when. What did you say to me the other day? Like, oh, when I I got to upgrade my bike before I come over.
Yeah, like
listen,
what? What kind
who
of a
says that? Like, what
stipulation
kind
is
of like?
that?
Hold on.
So,
Did I say I'm going to
okay,
upgrade my bike before I come over? I
no,
probably did,
maybe, yeah, maybe
but
that's a little
I'm looking to
exaggeration.
upgrade my bike this week, so I'll be over on Friday.
Fair enough. Okay, all right, that's fine.
I just got
are
my
you?
license, man.
Yeah, license to kill.
Yeah, license to drive, to
Don't
ride.
get me started on motorcycles.
I'll take you on a ride, Logan, Paulina.
No, I'll drive beside you guys in my safe SUV.
You don't like
Anything I can
motorcycles?
do
In
to
my
wrap my arms
Bogmobile.
around you, Rui.
Oh, what an
It's like I
excuse,
just
man.
want to be in that little
You
sidecar.
guys,
You
I
know what I
love
mean?
that. It's the connection, and that's what we need. We need that human connection. So if you guys are gonna cuddle on the motorcycle, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Logan, you got to get
Yeah.
out of that basement. You got to go like have lunch in your dining room, and you got to take
Okay.
intentional time to do that. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna
Great.
go up those stairs and ask my wife if she can let me out.
Yeah.
If I'm
Knock
good.
on the door. Yeah. See
Yeah.
if you're allowed out
Please.
of the dungeon.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
joke, but yeah. Actually, today is the first day ever. Today is the first day in 3-4 months that we now have 2 cars because my wife's car broke down and we ordered it from Honda and it took like 5 months, or it was going to take 3 months, but then it took 4, then it followed up, took 5.
So
But today's the first day that I can leave the house on my own with my own car. She works Monday and Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday. And I told her, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get shawarma corners today.
I like it.
Because I can, she's like, yeah, just don't, go nuts all week. Well, like, yeah, if you want to leave the house, like, this is the first day when I can actually leave.
Good.
So I'm gonna leave. Yeah.
I'll meet you at the pawn shop.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, man.
What are you selling? What are you buying?
I don't know. What are you chewing?
What are you chewing? Oh, thank you. Selling Rolexes.
Yeah,
I know.
what
I was talking about pawn shop. You remember pawn shop?
Yep.
No, you don't.
No.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
No, okay. Well, it's this thing you put in your mouth and you chew it.
Oh, pawn. Yeah. So PANN, not PA.
What's the difference?
What about you, Paulina? What are you going to do now that you're had this conversation and you're all invigorated from the knowledge that you currently possess that you've bestowed on us, luckily?
I'm gonna implement some exercise. That is honestly one area that I will say, like, I'm the one to put that aside and to say, oh, when I have time, when this is done. So I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna do some stretching at least to get started. And then it's a beautiful day and I'm gonna go for a walk.
Awesome.
This is awesome, man. But you know what? I feel like none of us are gonna do anything we said.
That is the truth.
Okay, so here's
we'll probably just continue
you're
working.
Not getting up and you're not getting up.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm definitely working.
I'm so happy you said that. Do not make my whole spiel for nothing.
No.
Okay. I'm so happy you said that. Accountability buddies. So that is like the one thing I always say. I'm like, find someone that's gonna help you stay accountable. Find someone that's going to say, did you do this? Send me a picture. Show me proof. The other day, I literally was forcing my coworker to go out and sit on her porch, and I made her send me a selfie of her sitting on her porch. So I like just accountability. So I want to see a picture of you guys out of your rooms, out of your office rooms.
Yep.
At least at some point of the day. Send it to each other if you want to keep yourselves accountable. And then I'll show you a picture of my walk.
Maybe we'll like be having our phones out as we're walking, Paulina. Could be
there you
down
go.
the street from each other and be like, who's this not bar holding a phone when you're walking? It's like, oh, that's Paulina. She's a mental health worker. I'm like, I don't like her. I don't like mental health. I don't like people. I don't like walking.
I'm going to keep looking on my phone.
Yeah, I'm like, I have tech neck and cell phone elbow. I'm trying to add like, I don't know, Nintendo Switch knee.
Is that the term, tech neck? I have that.
Yeah, so tech neck is basically looking down like this.
Yes,
and then,
I have
and then cell phone elbow is basically, when your arm's like this, and then you supinate, and then you look down. So it's kind of like you're doing that, and that's pretty much tech neck and cell phone. So if you want to fix tech neck, all you got to do is put your bum and I'm going to pause there. You're going to put your bum against the wall and your shoulder blades against the wall. And then you just do like wall angels, but your head should be back. And the most unflattering one is, you do the chin tucks.
The chin.
So you
the
get
chin
the triple
tucks.
chin.
Yes, I heard about that.
And people are sitting, right? So they're always looking forward.
Yeah.
You can lie on your stomach, because if you lie on your stomach watching TV like a teenager, like, oh, I love Backstreet Boys or whatever,
Yeah.
like your back is like that, so you're, just put your body in
Interesting.
weird positions, and
Good to
you probably
know.
live longer. Yeah. Just
Okay.
don't walk.
Well, I'm gonna
My
start
kids won't
doing
let me.
weird
I was
positions.
gonna say my kids won't let me walk with them, because I walk backwards and I do side steps, and they're like, and then my daughter the other day said to me, like, and she's like, one of my friends thinks you're really weird. And I was like, why? It's like, well, they saw you standing there and you smiled at them. And I was like, oh, I was like, oh shoot, she's like, like, she didn't say anything like, can you wait in the car or anything? But like, I'm weird, eh? Like, and she's like, yeah, that's okay. I'm weird too. And it's like, I love you. Let's
Aw,
walk backwards down the sidewalk
I
and freak
love
people out.
that.
So, but sorry, you were gonna say.
I don't know what I was gonna say. I just said I'm
Fair
gonna
enough.
start doing some weird positions to fix my
Nice.
tech
I
neck.
need to do some too because I got terrible tech neck.
Yeah,
Yep.
I do.
Tech
I have
neck
like the
and
bulge like back here. Yeah.
yeah. The good news is it's all fixable. All you have to do is stop doing everything you're doing on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
do everything
So if
wrong.
you sit at a desk, or are you on screens and want to be healthy, all you have to do is not work and not look at screens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. Or actually, people that have pillows, like everyone on their bed,
Yeah.
it pushes your neck forward, right? Just to let you know, pillows do not help tech neck. Ideally, over time, you want to like reduce your pillow girth until you're like really, really thin and sleep with no pillow. But you don't go to that right away. You wake up with like a really hurt neck. Just lie right on the floor. You got hardwood, or you got a bathroom that's clean. Just lie right on it. And it just, you got to melt that butter, right? It's just lie there. And
Interesting.
if you really want to have good posture, this is a weird hack.
Oh
Get
God.
some hardwood floor, or like lie on a hard floor, get a projector, point it right at the white ceilings that we all have, and do mouse and keyboard on the ground. You're completely lying flat, looking straight up. And projectors now on Amazon, I'll put a link in the description, which I get commission for. I won't do that. But yeah, they're now like $100, $150, whatever.
Yeah, they're
Like,
not what it used to be. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
good.
That
Yeah.
last
Lying
one
the
I'm
floor.
not gonna do because it's weird. But I
like,
might do the wall angels. That sounded interesting.
yeah. Wall angels. Yeah. It's good. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank
thank
you,
you guys.
Paulina, and
I appreciate you having
thank
me.
you, Rui, and we'd love to have you back. And
I'd
yeah,
love to come back.
We'll see you guys next time on CodePlay Culture. Hope you guys have a great day, and take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.